What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here's a clip from our song, I Need a Light.
It was the middle of the night. My only friend was the highway. I just started to drive. No direction, only miles spent. I was losing my mind. Nothing more than tears and shaking. Well, the moon was so bright. We usually spin and spin. I see my darkest days, see my darkest days. I see my darkest days, see my darkest days. I need a light, so bright and the sun seems dim. I need something that will not fade, held tight like the hand of a friend. I need someone that won't run away.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band, at Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and there'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast.
The Live and Create podcast.
It's taking care of the family and hustling, making it all work, dude.
Got to.
Dude, that is one thing I wanted to dive into, and you just kind of starting there. It's been kind of cool to meet a lot of different people. I'm very new to this industry as far as the sync licensing goes, less than a year at this point. And a lot of people I'm meeting have this passion for taking care of their families, like having them part of their lives, as well as building a great career, which is a little different because I come from the touring world and most people's families are just falling apart because you're gone all the time. So it was I have 4 kids. So it's a refreshing thing to see. What does that look like for you? I mean, you're a producer, you also running this business and a very high paced business. And then also a man who wants to invest in his family. What does that look like? What are some tools that you use just to help all those flourish?
Definitely having a support system around that can help out when needed. We have like a preschool that my son goes to, and then my daughter goes to school. So during the day is when I'm able to get most of the work done. And my wife right now is also going to school to get her master's while on top of working. So we definitely have to like schedule and make sure we're flexible around each other's schedule because it's very demanding, but me, like I'm very family oriented first. Like my family is my priority. So I always prioritize them and prioritize whatever is needed as far as like the support for my, daughter going to school, make sure her homework's done, or my son. It's definitely a lot of scheduling between me and my wife saying, okay, are you available this time? Okay, I'll pick them up. I'll drop them off. You drop them off this day. I'll pick them up this day. It's really busy. But as far as the work side of it, luckily when they're not here, I'm able to get a lot done. And then when they're here, I shut that off and kind of just focus on them unless it's something urgent that needs to be turned in. Like last night, like we'll get requests at like 9:40 p.m. Luckily at that time they're asleep, so I'm able to knock that out really quickly.
Right. So it's like put into bed and you're like, I might be able to do a few more hours.
Yeah, exactly.
In this moment.
Yeah, 5 to 9 is like a hard time to kind of schedule work if my wife's not here, if she's at school or something like that. But usually, that's not really the case. So it's just about prioritizing what's in front of you in that moment, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point too. Cause I share with my wife sometimes, it's like, I wrestle with when I'm in the music realm, like I feel like a guilt of not being with the family, if I'm on the road or if I'm in a studio for, 12 hours or whatever it is. But then when I'm with the family, sometimes I feel like this like guilt, like I should be working. Right. Like, I don't know, like what helps you stay in the moment?
I know that I'll never have this time back with my children. I saw a chart that showed like the amount of time that you're with your children and the amount of time that you're not. Is like there's way more time that you're not going to be with your children when they're at a certain age, just because as they get older, the less and less my dynamic with my family, I see them less and less throughout the years as I get older, just because we're more busy, more responsibilities come up, children, work, all that other stuff. So I think that when I'm with them, that's like the most important time to me. And it's like appreciate all the little things and all the little nuances, even when it's not the easiest, even when it's tough. Because as you have four, so you already know, but it gets tough.
Yeah. There's some
And I
tough days, man.
yeah, and I understand that work's always going to be there. Like I'm always going to have the opportunity to work, God willing, throughout my entire life. But maybe that time
Right.
with my children, time with my family, may not be as prominent in the future. So I just try to appreciate as much family time as possible. I've always wanted to be a dad. Like that's always been one of my biggest goals, even since as a child. I grew up not knowing my father, so I think that had like a big impact on how present I become and how close I am with my kids. And I grew up as the oldest brother of five, so I always played like that older sibling, like almost like parental kind of role in a certain sense.
Right. So
And
you
I've
were
always
living that
carried that.
life even back then. It was like
Yeah, yeah.
growing into you.
Yeah, I have a childlike spirit too as well. So I'm goofy, super goofy, super, I love that playtime with them. So it's not perfect though, as you know, as a father, it's not
Mhm.
perfect. You're always gonna deal with those ups and downs of like the consistency of I need to be doing this or I need to be doing that or I should be with them. That's totally understandable. That's gonna happen. That's
Yeah.
natural. But I think it's just showing up and doing the best that you can. I think that as fathers being present in our kids' lives that we're already, starting the first step of that journey. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
I love that question. I love talking about, being a parent and fatherhood and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for asking that.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Because it's a big thing for me. Because that's something I wanted, even on the touring side. I was like, I don't want to lose my family in this, but I also have this dream that I literally can't shake. I've
Mm,
tried to quit music. I've tried to stop this pursuit, and it just didn't even let me. So I'm like, how do I live in that tension? And so like I said, it's inspiring to see other people who are doing that and walking that road. And yeah, and then I love just learning, those tools. Cause like you said, being in the moment, that's so I try to do meditation, try to learn to like calm my brain, calm myself a bit. Cause sometimes, yeah, it's hard to be in that moment. And damn, it's true. Like, so my oldest is 21 now.
okay.
And what's really cool is he comes back. Like he was just here yesterday, which is funny is like you said, trying to carve out time, but I had to finish vocals. I had like a deadline.
Right.
I'm like yelling at everybody that just got home from school. I'm like, y'all gotta be quiet. Like 40 more minutes, 40 more minutes. And, but he still comes and hangs out. But it was wild when he got his license. We thought we had till 18. But when he got his license, we realized, oh, we had till 16 because
Mhm.
dude's got a job. He's hanging out with his girlfriend. But I'm
Right.
glad now he's getting older. He's coming back around, man. It's a huge thing. Where, as far as music goes, you've had this long career, step after step. Where were the first steps though for you in music? Where did you start?
I would say like I've always, as a producer, I'm a producer, so I've always had like this ear for hearing the background details. So ever since a kid, like hearing Aaliyah, I remember just hearing like these birds in the back of a song one time, and just telling my friends like, Do you hear that bird in the background?" And they're like, I never even noticed that. And I think since then, I always knew I had this connection and this pull towards music. And then as I started getting older, I started doing like band and stuff like that, and I realized like I love doing this. And in high school, I joined like marching band, the pit crew, and stuff like that. And it just took over me. Like I just wanted to be at school, after school, just practicing drums, practicing piano, whatever it was, just being really involved into the music scene. Right around that time when I was like 15 years old, I used to play this game called Diablo 2, and I had a friend that I
Remember
met
that?
on there, and we started chatting on AOL Instant Messenger back when it was like the go-to tool to text people. And he was telling me about like his music he made, and he sent me some tracks. And from there, like I was super interested. I really wanted to know like what this was about. How do you do it? I didn't even know this was a possibility. And he
Mm.
basically just showed me FL Studio. He sent me it in like a little zip file that took like 3 days to download. I just left my computer on, and I ever since then it's been nonstop. Like that journey has been nonstop. I like you how you mentioned earlier. Even when I tried to take little breaks away from it, it's like I can't really.
It
It
calls you
pulls me
back.
back in. Yeah,
Brings you in.
yeah, exactly. And you come back more refreshed and like super powered and stuff like that. It's like it's like
Oh
training
yeah.
in the hyperbolic time chamber or something for Dragon Ball Z. It's like it's just gonna always bring you back to a bigger strength. So I think that was like the real pursuit of my music journey. And then eventually graduating high school, I went to Full Sail University and got my recording arts bachelor's degree, and that kind of just shifted me and pulled me to where I am now.
That's awesome, man. Dude, hearing those details, like I I gave myself to the production, like I sold my soul to the production demons, I guess, back in it was November last year. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this. Like
Right.
I've been writing and hiring producers. I was like, I got to learn how to produce. And man, it's fascinating. The deeper you go, all the things you hear. It's like even today I was listening to Hunting Party's like been one of my favorite albums from Linkin Park recently. I'm just
Okay.
on it nonstop. And it's like every day I'm hearing like, oh my God, what they did with that one vocal, like right over here. Those little details, sometimes it could drive you nuts, but it's to me, it's so fascinating. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
For sure. That's a great band I feel like to study for producing, just because of the amount of producing they put in the background, the little details, how they blend, like a live production with, like in the box, like, just synthetic elements and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a great album to get lost in. I feel like with the minute details.
Oh yeah, and that's what I love about it. It's like Mike Shinoda's Brain. I think the way my bass player and I just went and saw them live. It's like 2-3 weeks ago, and
nice.
blown away live. It was amazing. But yeah, his brain, the way it works and what they're doing in production is fascinating. And like you said, the way they blend it, the blending the guitars and like the mid range synths, and how somehow it all just like comes together. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's inspiring, man.
I've seen them twice live too as well. Back with Chester
Man.
Show live, it was incredible.
Dude, it's an experience. I'm actually kind of got emotional just thinking about it right now. I had to leave after about an hour. I had to walk out because I was like so overcome by emotion. And the only thing I could think of is like I think Emily's amazing. I think she's killing it. But I never got to see him with Chester, and that was the only piece that I was like, man, I wonder what that would have been like. So I'm a little jealous that you got to see.
It was crazy.
Do you have an album right now, or that's always been kind of a thing you go back to when it comes to mixing? That it's like, man, this is the one
for mixing. And this is gonna seem like, I feel like one album that really just like always pulls me, just because it's so vintage, but it still sounds so modern to me. It's Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers. Like mixing on those like tracks like Jammin'. Like if you listen to the mixing on Jammin', I feel like you can compare that now. I know there's a mastered or like a remastered version of it right now, but if you compare that to a lot of tracks, like the amount of space and openness and production quality, and even like the way that the drums sync up with the guitar and the swing, and then Bob Marley just going crazy on it, it's ridiculous to me. I study it on a deeper level outside of just like, they use a certain EQ or they use a certain reverb. I think of like, they left so much space. And there's so much like bounce still within the track that you could just hear everything translate really easily. Like the drummer is going insane with the fills, and everything's just so syncopated. I feel like that is like, if you want to go like deep on the production side of it, I just like studying like the simplicity of not adding too many elements, but having such a full and energetic and like timeless, lively, I feel like, project. I feel like that's an album. Even now, I'm like, like when I pick up my kids, I'm not playing anything like vulgar or anything like that. So we're just listening to like, if I don't want to hear like kids music, I'm putting on like Bob or something. We're all
kids
like,
Bob, bro.
Yeah, we all have an agreement. Okay, like this is gonna put us in a good mood. We're gonna feel good, and I just like to study a lot of like the details in the background. I would say that's one that I keep coming back to for many years.
Yeah, it does sound amazing. My boys went through my two youngest boys went through a big Bob Marley phase because we watched the recent movie. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
And I mean, they watched it every day, like on their own. They were so fascinated. And every day it was like Buffalo Soldier was like, they're like, can we play this? And it did sound so amazing. Like going back to that, I hadn't really listened much. Yeah, I'm going to be on my way. We have a video shoot tonight. I'll put that in and dive in, thinking from the production end of it. When you graduating from Full Sail, did the band thing, or fall in love with production. And I'm curious, at Full Sail, what do you feel like you gained from your experience there? What are some of the big things that you took away from that spot? Because I've heard so many great things. I've worked with some live production people who were just off the charts great, who came from Full Sail. But yeah, I'm curious, your experience, what are some of the things you took from that?
So Full Sail is like a different type. It's like an accelerated program. So you're in class like pretty much, you have 1 month classes. So each topic is literally a month, and you have to go through like physics and all that stuff, like calculus and all that stuff. And then eventually you get towards the point where you're doing like different music program, like music production, music theory, live production, post audio, different things like that. And I would say that from the pacing, I've learned just how to work in a quick environment and how the hours are so like they try to set it up where it's like, all right, once you're in the industry, your hours can be anything really. Like it could be in the middle of the night, it could be in the middle of the day. So they would have classes like at 3 a.m., 1 a.m., 5 a.m.
I love it.
Yeah,
We're gonna teach you about the real world. There's no 8 to 5, bro.
yeah, so you would do like 4-hour lectures and then 4-hour like live like using like basically the techniques that you maybe learned in lecture, maybe and you'll go into the studio and then do like a 4-hour block of that. So you have like 2 classes a month essentially with those 4-hour blocks. And I feel like that taught me like just the being able to adapt to the pacing and understanding like it's going to take a lot of work. And the thing about full sales, like you see a lot of people drop out over time as the months go because it's demanding. It's very demanding. It's hard to get a job when you have different schedules and stuff like that. So I would say like it definitely taught me the pacing. As far as like the techniques and stuff, like you learn certain things, but it's not long enough to be like, okay, this is instilled in me now, unless it's like how to wrap a mic cable up correctly or, stuff like that. But you
They
learn
had a
like,
month-long class on wrapping a cable correctly.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I have 30 days straight of just wrapping cables, but no, I feel like it taught me like a lot of the minute details, at a quick pace, which helped me. But the biggest thing, like the biggest takeaway I took from Full Sail is just being close to your network of people that are around you, not only in the space of music, but just like live entertainment or gaming. Like a lot of those people who went through Full Sail, graduated, and are still doing it are just as far as you, or maybe even farther in their career. And that connection that you have is always a good reference point. I feel like Full Sail has a really good career development and alumni program where you're able to connect with people who went through it with you, or maybe didn't through it with you and went through it another time that have that understanding. It's like, okay, we both went through this experience together. I already know what the type of person you are persevering through something like that. And you're still in your career, you're still doing it. So I can trust you to an extent if I've never met you. So I think that like just building a strong network also from Full Sail is something that I learned. I think that is the most valuable part outside of just the educational part of it.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up because like I'll talk to like younger people like in the industry and they'll ask about college. And I typically say, I have my degree in music, but I typically say to them, you don't really need to do a degree now if you're willing to do the work. I said, but my only caveat is if you go to the right school. So like if you went to a lot of times the people in live music. So if you went to Belmont, if you went to Berkeley, I was like, then the most valuable thing you're doing is your professors are not like some dude who did it 10 years ago. The professors are like going out on tour with Florida Georgia Line. In fact, I know a kid who went to Belmont, eventually went there, and that was the case. And his first job out of college was mixing drums down for Florida Georgia Line.
Wow.
And like I try to tell them, like, if it's for the network, then it's worth it because it seems to be so powerful. But like I went to K-State and I wanted to be a live performer. It was a really dumb choice in my end. I'm glad I got the training, you know what I mean? But, in retrospect, I'm like, if my kids want to do it, I'm like, go where the network is or just get out there and use every resource you can to learn what you can and pull forward, I guess, push forward. But
I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying. I think that you don't need to go through college to do if you're going to be on like the entertainment or creative side. Unless it's something specific where you actually need a degree, I don't think that like it's worth going into the debt. I think that if you unless you're going in there to get a network, but outside of that, like you can really go to all these different conferences and stuff that they have and do the same type of thing. But
true,
I would give the same advice to my children as well.
It's like take $10,000 and fly all over the country and up to Canada and go to all the different conferences and work your ass off and take private lessons. And, I know I have a long way to go when it comes to production and mixing, but it's just been fascinating by the two things, like really ChatGPT and YouTube. I kind of put that all together, and then the community, like being part of the Sync Alliance with Josh Williams. Is like they have all these producers. So I start throwing up tracks. What's wrong with it? And they're like, hey, fix this, like tweak that, try this plugin, and it's like just that. I feel like I learned more since November than like maybe my 4-year degree is what it feels like.
Right.
But it took a lot of effort at the same time in that regard. That's one thing that has been very refreshing about stepping into the sync world as well. Is the more and more people I'm meeting, almost every one of them are about relationships. They're about the networks. They're about investing in people. I guess I don't know if I had an opinion if it was going to be like that or not, but it was just a surprising thing walking into that. For you, when you think about the career you have built and are building, how important has the networking been for you?
I would say the number one thing is the network that you build, especially in music, but you get to see it in a more intimate setting, I feel like, with sync licensing, because a lot of it's a small business. It seems big, but it's pretty small. So a lot of people know the same people that you may know, depending on who you mix up with. And I feel like the opportunities that come to me the most are from referrals, just coming from somebody just saying, hey, like, you got to check out Nathan because he specializes in this hip hop and he has a library and they really excel in pop and hip hop and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of relationships that have been nourished and built over time have been a great point of reference for me. And the same thing, like, I love connecting people to opportunities if I can, depending on who I may know or what they may specialize in. So I think that if you really, and this goes for music in general, not just sync licensing, you get to see it on a caring level. Like, people in sync really care. It's not like if you're signed to like a record deal and it's just like cutthroat and everybody's going to screw you over and just worry about them. And it's always about me, 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 me. But the sync community is about us. Like, everybody has a mutual understanding about it. There's some sharks that have come in over time that, kind of will tarnish it in certain ways, but that's not the image of the entire ecosystem of sync licensing, in my opinion. And everybody has a passion to help. And once someone learns about sync licensing and the ins and outs of it, it's like each one teach one type of deal where they're willing to teach you, hey, this is what I did, this is where you go, this is how you set up to get yourself in the right business mindset to get started within this industry. And I think that being able to have a community and network like that, and being able to be like, hey, I met this guy 5 years ago in sync license, and now we're getting these placements together because we built that relationship. I think that it's invaluable. I feel like, a lot of my close friends now have come through sync licensing, and I'm super appreciative for that. But like I was saying, like, in music in general, I feel like if you really want to make anything of a music career, I've seen this on many different spectrums, is the relationships you build are the most important thing, in my opinion, almost more important than the music.
Jared Alua, we were talking about that, where I was like, so what is it? Is like 50% music, 50%, people? And he just started laughing. He's like, I don't know, maybe it's 90% people, 10% music. He's like, think about how do you say it? Think about how many whack tracks you've heard on a commercial. And it's like, that dude got it. His music is not as good as your music, but he knew somebody. I thought that was pretty interesting. So the networks, right, that you took away from it was you stepped into the sync world. My understanding was as an intern, though, right? Was that right out of college?
Yeah. So I got internship straight out of Full Sail. They had career development program, which I mentioned earlier, and they have different opportunities. So I had different internship opportunities, and I never was into the sync licensing scene before I started working as an intern. But essentially, they have like music libraries that they have like in their career development program, and a couple like studios and stuff. And I've always wanted to live in Los Angeles. I'm from Virginia originally, and I saw one for Los Angeles that was an internship for a music library called Signature Tracks. And I ended up signing up with them as an intern for 7 months unpaid, until eventually like earning my own role with them, eventually basically moving up into like a music supervision role with that company. And it taught me like the ins and outs, not only as a composer, but also just seeing the back end ecosystem of TV, more specifically to like reality TV. I got to really see all the moving parts behind the scenes of what makes a television show. And that just gave me an immense amount of experience and perspective over time.
How long did it take to go from intern to full-fledged music supervisor in that company?
So 7 months until they gave me I was basically fighting for a spot. So it was me and another dude. I guess we were both interning. I didn't even know this at the time.
Ended with an MMA fight at the end, kind of deal.
And obviously, I'm here. No.
Well played, my friend.
It was between me and him, and they gave me the opportunity. So they were like, "Hey, let's put you on full time, and we're gonna try you out." And it was like 7 years that I was working with them.
Wow.
And I kind of just moved up the ladder. So you started as like a music associate, then you go to music coordinator, then music supervisor, where essentially you're just helping on the back end, doing like a lot of cue sheets, which is just like a sheet of all the music that's used on a TV show. So there's like, it could be up to 100 to 140 different tracks on a TV show. And you need to make sure you fill out all the information so you can properly accredit what musician and what writers and all the splits are on that track. I did a lot of like curating playlists. So kind of like how your Spotify playlists have certain curated playlists. I did that, but for TV shows. So
Hmm.
if you're working on Love is Blind, which just dropped on Netflix, and they want romantic love cues, they're going to want like a folder of them, and you have to provide like a high amount because there's a lot of music and a lot of
Mhm.
episodes. So I would be the person like curating different playlists and separating music into certain playlists to increase your chances of getting placed, because a great playlist is really going to help you get placed. I did a lot of metadata on the back end. So it was like a lot of different parts. You had to wear a lot of different hats
Yeah.
with this with that role. And yeah, just got to see like a lot of different angles, like I said, what goes on in this industry.
Now, was it after that 7 years that you stepped out to build your own company, or was there something in between that?
Man, that's a great. This is a great question. You're setting this up really well. Yeah, that's a great question. So, I stopped in 2020, like May 2020, right when COVID hit, and the reason being is because I was already making enough from royalties alone, and I kind of wanted to go in a different direction, and
Mhm.
not in the sense of leave sync licensing, but just educate the community on sync licensing. I'm a musician that started off producing and selling beats online, so I have a
Mhm.
very strong connection with just seeing how hard it is to kind of find your own lane as a musician in this industry. Like I saw a lot of people try to make, monetize off their passion. So in 2020, there was not many people at all, like barely anybody talking about sync licensing. And I had learned so much. And I'm like, if I teach people this, like, this can literally change their lives. So
Yeah.
I left there. I was still composing for them, started composing for different libraries as well, doing a lot of like freelance work, like making like demo packs for native instruments and stuff like that for the new packs that they
Wow.
drop. And then
Okay.
at that same time, I was educating the community, just sharing free videos, like sharing videos and doing like live streams every Friday of just giving critiques and just sharing as much information that I had learned from those last 7 years as possible. Eventually, like this organically kind of just created a community of just really talented musicians that were hungry and that I was already teaching about sync licensing. So I was confident enough to know that they know what they're doing. And I had people like tell me before, like, yo, you should really start a library, you should really start your own catalog. And I was kind of just helping people get placements just by telling them like everything I learned. And I had my old boss from Sinister Tracks. He's like the head composer there. He was like, "Hey, man, I really think you should start your own catalog because you're seeing these people get these wins, and I feel like you can help them on another level with the placement." So it kind of gave me the courage to be like, "All right, I think I'm ready to kind of start this journey. It's a lot harder and a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. Like it's man, this is demanding in a different way that I've never experienced. But I loved the journey so far, and like I said, I built that community organically, so I was able to just find
Hmm.
the talent that was already there that I had in my network, and kind of be like, hey, I'm starting this. I would love to get you guys on board, and from there, naturally, organically, like the music part of it, building great musicians, like finding great musicians and building a great catalog has been the easy part. I feel like the hard
Mhm.
part is more so just making the right connections and getting on people's radar, especially with like writer strike and different things like that,
Mhm.
where it's kind of slowed down the pace of the production of TV and film, especially with like streaming now taking over cable. So it's been a lot harder than it was. I feel like it would have been like 5 years ago. But that's kind of naturally how I got into this space of building
Wow.
my own catalog.
That's cool that it kind of boiled up organically for you. So the super selective, like the portal piece, like that community, a lot of those people were initially with you, like just kind of learning from you in that little collective then?
A good amount of them, yeah. A good amount of
Wow.
them. Some of them have been word of mouth, or especially with like Sync Alliance. I've been on a Sync Alliance a couple of times, XJ Will's
Mhm.
community, and I've spoken a couple of times. And XJ Will will just send me like references, or people in that community will send me references. Most of them have been word of mouth, or some people will just like sign up on our submission portal online, and I found them that way as well. Because there's a lot, we get a lot of submissions. I get like probably like I don't even know how many submissions we get a day trying to get into the catalog. So I try to listen to them
Seems like
as I
almost
can.
every supervisor, like when Josh brings them in, for the feedback sessions, that's where I initially had become familiar with you. Uh, it seems like all of them are like, dude, I get like 100 at least a day or whatever it is. And,
Right.
but and those listening though, like and you could probably attest to this. Like one person shared how he's like, I try to answer, but sometimes I just can't. And he said, but I search my email. And one time I was looking for something that I just didn't have. So I searched my email for this thing, and an email from 2 years ago had popped up in my inbox. I never had opened it. It was some band I never had heard of. And I opened their email, clicked on their track, and it was the perfect track. Next thing you know, 2 years later, I'm emailing them back with a sync opportunity, and they got their first sync placement. And I was kind of like, Oh, okay. So for those listening, don't let that deter you. But I don't know if there's like moments that have happened like that for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we were working on a Netflix show that we needed specific songs that we didn't have in our catalog. It was like romantic breakup songs, and we didn't have too many of them in the style that they were looking for. So I just went through that submission portal. We have like a Excel sheet of people who've submitted to us, and I went through them and I'm like just looking because we separated by genre. We keep it organized. So I was looking for that genre specifically. I started listening to the people's tracks who submitted, and we signed like 2 or 3 people just from having their submissions from earlier this year, maybe even last year, for that Netflix opportunity. Got them on board, told them the deal, what's going on, and what we needed, and they were on board. And yeah, it's
That's
like the
awesome.
right time, the right moment. So maybe if you don't hear in the moment, just understand that it's not a hard no, I would say, until it's like, all right, you're sending 3 or 4 times, and it's becoming a little bit more 3 or 4 times in a very small window, and it's coming a little bit more aggressive as opposed to just being patient and let it.
Like every Wednesday,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've definitely had
they're
people.
hitting you up on IG, LinkedIn, coming up,
I had somebody text me
hunting you down.
before. Yeah, I had somebody text me. I
Okay.
had no idea how they got my number, and
So unsolicited on your personal
yeah,
phone.
through my text, and I'm like, "What is this?" I immediately blocked them.
Yeah.
I found their name, and I'm like, "I am not dealing with this person," just because I just don't feel like that was respectable. I feel like sending an email
Yeah.
and just waiting for your time when the time is called is. And I get it, because I'm the same way because I'm pitching to new supervisors, and I may not hear from them at all, and I may be following up 5 or 6 times over the span of maybe a year or so,
Yep.
and I get it, but hunting them down and texting them like, "Yo, check out my music," it's like that's not the way to go.
Yeah, that seems pretty aggressive, man. It's like if they didn't give you the number, it just seems personal.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
seems like, hey, bro. Well, and even the live music world, we just played a show. We played 2 shows. Where as a fly date, we did the Washington State Fair up there and went in, did it. It was a great, great event. Found out our agent had pitched us 2 years in a row. And both years they passed and went with some other band. But she said this past year, they specifically called her and said, that band, Run With It, that we've seen you keep pitching us, we think this is the right year. We want to bring them in. And it was one of those, it was another aha. Okay, this pays off. Just keep doing your thing. Don't take it personal because maybe the time's not right or it wasn't, whatever it was. Yeah, I keep hearing those stories in the sync world. Now, this is selfish question here. As far as submitting, so like, Run With It's part of Supr Selectiv, right? And when you're with a library, what are the best ways, to kind of boil to the top for you and your other music supervisors when someone's trying to continue to like source their library?
That's a great question. It really depends on the circumstance. The people that are the easiest to work with tend to be on the most playlist, but that
Okay.
that also depends on the type of projects I'm working on. So just because you're easy to work with doesn't mean necessarily automatically getting on the playlist, and just because you're not easy to work with doesn't mean automatically you're not getting on the playlist either. If you have great music, I'm pitching it depending on what they're asking for. But what really helps me as far as a catalog owner is when people have their stuff together, where I don't have to track them down for their splits. I don't have to track them down for their lyrics. I don't have to track them down for even some people even have metadata. That's not necessarily a requirement for us, but it does make my life easier when I have less things to do to get your music ingested into the system. Now, we have like an open submission policy where you can just submit whatever. It doesn't have to be specifically for a project that we may have going on that moment, which I think helps for a lot of people if they feel like they want to consistently get tracks in. The more music, the better. But
Yeah.
the things I really like, when I get a lot, like most of the briefs I get are like due within a day, due within the same day. And a lot of the music that I'm turning in are people who have a high volume because they've pitched enough where they're like established in different areas that we don't necessarily have a lot of. And I'm using, so for your band, for example, your band is the only band or musician in that style in our catalog. So whenever we get briefs like that, automatic, like it's
Sweet.
it's automatic in that sense. So it really depends on the situation, what the client's looking for. But if it's something that I need like today and I'm be like, hey guys, we need to create something today, I'm hitting up the people I know I can rely on, that I know that we're going to get a track turned in within today and it's going to be at a decent quality. I know that insane high quality is not going to be done within 24 hours every single time, but at least where it's pitchable, at least where it's like, this is presentable. So
Yeah.
if it's on a sense of like urgency and I need it today, I'm hitting up the people I know who are super reliable. When it comes to briefs, I'm really just turning in what matches the brief description the most. And it's not like I'm picking one person over the other because this person works with me more, talks to me more. No, it's about serving the client and serving what the vision behind the project really is. So I went a lot of different places with that answer, but
No, that helps a lot. Like one thing I hear in there is just the volume piece. Hold on one second. My dog decided that she wants to attack like the mailman or something. Give me one second.
no problem.
Oh, one of my dogs is high anxiety. So she just every little thing, she's like freaking out. And we have these acorn trees that are around. So
Mhm.
right now during the season, they're dropping on the ceiling.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think it's tripping her out because it was messing me up. I was like editing some stuff today and all of a sudden I was like, what's going on? And so, yeah, anyways. So no, I think you talked about kind of like putting a lot of things in there, but I think one of the things I heard was just like that volume piece of like, that this person is giving you options, but also just that's kind of cool to know, like we're a band. And so just be a band, like, and you'll find your place as a band,
Right.
and when that stuff comes up, it's like knowing your niche. I tried and being fast. So we got a 24-hour brief in the Sync Alliance and it was like 7 o'clock. I came home from the boys' soccer practice and I was like, all right, I'm going to try my hand at this. And it was a whole different genre than I ever work with. And we track, the drums, we track guitar. I have a whole band to lean on. So this is going to be like the first time I ever tried like in the box, fully Miguel.
Right.
And I got like 3 hours in and I was like, I'll be up till 8 a.m. and still not have it. I wasn't ready for that piece. And I don't even think as far as genre wise, I was like, I learned a good lesson that night where it's like, maybe this one wasn't for me, at least at this stage in my career. So it's very interesting. Very interesting.
You're making that person's life easier if you're able to admit that. Like, I think that it's good that you at least tempted to see where you're at to gauge. But just because there's a brief that we post or there's a brief that's posted doesn't necessarily mean you need to work on it. If it's way out of your comfort zone and way out of your style, it's almost worth not sending. It's better not sending than it is sending. unless you like just want to do it for practice and just take a stab at it. I've
Get
done
feedback.
plenty of those. Yeah, I've done plenty
Yeah.
of those and I completely understand that. But when it comes to like something that's super urgent and they want like high quality, they're going to be picking the ones that most likely fit that brief and fit what they're looking for. So I get
Right.
both sides of it.
Yeah, it was exciting, the challenge of it, because like I said, I feel like I've been growing and learning so much, but I just recognize it's like, okay, because I do like collabs. I'm starting to do collaborations where I'm just doing top line, which is where I can live. Like that's my place, as a singer. And then in the band, I lean on everybody else's expertise, and then I'm just putting it all together. And it's like, yeah, one day, but
Yeah, it's going to take time.
probably not this year, not like within the next like 365 days. When you think of Supr Selectiv, you think of this community that you're continuing to grow, these challenges that you're facing. What do you see for the next like 2 to 3 years for you as far as success goes?
I see, like, I want a strong circle of client base that feels like friends. And it doesn't need to be a lot. I would say I want to build within 2 years, like I would put minimum, or I would put like my target range of like 10 to 15, just very strong relationships. I'm at like 4 or 5, I would say, that have just been like, we've moved from cold email to meeting in person to every time we see each other, we hold a conversation to maybe email or text each other or whether they're sending briefs or whatever. I feel like there's like a handful of people that have been in that space so far with me, but I really want to make that foundation even stronger within these client base within 10 to 15 years. And with that goal, everything else will come into fruition. Because if you become a go-to person for a music library as a musician that's reliable for the work that you get, the same thing applies to a music supervisor or a production company or anyone in that sense. Like right now, we're working on we have a relationship with a marketing agency for like a small commercial, like a local ad, and it pays pretty decent for like a small gig. And just having that relationship that I've had for the last couple of years, it wasn't even with music directly. It was just like ended up basically having our children at the same preschool, but we've kept in touch about what we do. And the right time came up where they hit us up, and it's been like 2 or 3 years since we've built this foundation of just talking about what we do and how our kind of lives parallel in the sense of like the creative space. And she hit me up for a project. So it's like stuff like that. It takes time, but nourishing like a good relationship where it's like, hey, I have this opportunity. Let's work on this together. This is how much it pays. And, just being able to parallel a friendship with the business relationship. I think it's like, I really want that to be the foundation of like my client base within Supr Selectiv the next 2 years for sure. On the music side, I really want to keep collaborating within the ecosystem that we have right now, and then not be so quick to just be like, all right, let's accept everybody and take everybody. I think that the smaller our circle, but the more consistent we are as far as a team of building like great music, the better.
Right.
And then slowly adding different pieces along the way, which is that's literally have been like that's what's going on naturally and organically. I think that would be great. And then I would love to have like a project that is wall to wall us, whether it be like a scripted series where there's like maybe I mean this is a long shot goal within 2 years, but like wall to wall basically means like most of the music in that show is you. Like most of the music in that
Wow.
show is your catalog. And I've seen it done with signature tracks on certain like reality TV shows. So if we're able to do
Yeah, I can
that,
imagine that's a huge, I mean, that's a huge thing for your company, huge thing for all the artists involved to know like,
yeah,
hey, let's just keep feeding this thing right here.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
amazing. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. But I think that that would be the main goal, just building that strong foundation. That's where I see us within 2 years. Strong foundation of relationships, because it takes time, and that's been happening right now, naturally, organically on a smaller scale. But just building that circle a little bit bigger and keeping it stronger, and then just keep nourishing those relationships, and then having the ecosystem of musicians that we have just continue to get stronger, because the collaborations are insane that come between like Supr Selectiv and even Sync Alliance too. Like Sync Alliance has like a strong foundation of collaborations that even end up with our catalog too as well. So,
Yeah, I was surprised when I got into the portal. Is that what you call it? The portal? I can't
yeah.
remember.
Oh, Circle? Yeah. Yeah.
The circle. I'm sorry. And I was like, hey, I know Omega, I know Qatar, I know like I was like, oh, that's awesome to see that in there. And yeah, I just stepped out. I'm tracking vocals and editing vocals for my first collaboration where I'm doing top line out of the Sync Alliance, and start my next one Monday with a guy out of Italy who's part of Sync Alliance. As we're talking, I realize like I've been sleeping on the circle. I've been sleeping on like the community there. So I need to get more intentional about diving in and meeting folks, because that'd be really, really cool.
For sure, man. That's where it's at.
It's funny. I hear these mantras in the sync world so far as it's the get rich slow program,
Yeah.
this long-term thing that can really pay off in the end. And then I also hear this term that people keep saying, this phrase is that it takes 2 years to get your first sync. And it does seem like there's obviously people who have beat that time, but the more and more people I meet, a lot of them are like, yeah, 18 months or 2 years, somewhere in that realm was when they first landed their first sync. And then I'm watching one person, right? You know, TC?
Yeah. TC. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he was one who kind of shared that same mentality. And now I'm watching him start getting sync after sync. It's like things seem to be like really starting to like roll for him. Part of me wonders what you just talked about, like with your long-term goals or these, 2-3 year goals, is part of that reality, just because if you're going to make those real relationships, it does take time. It does take time to cultivate that.
Yeah, it does. I feel like for me, it took me probably 18 months, which is really weird that you even said that. I think it took me 18 months to see my first placement. Some of it has to do with just how long it takes to actually like make a project. So maybe they're asking for music 3 months in within their project, but they have a 9-month span of how long they're going to be working on that project.
Okay.
Movies may take longer. Movies take up 2-3 years. So it really just depends on the project, but that is a deciding factor. But the process of synchronizing, it's not an instant gratification type of ordeal. You have to understand that it's like building a portfolio almost, and just letting it play out over time. And I think that the more you're able to be patient, the more rewards you're going to see over time. The more you have faith that, hey, I'm doing what it takes to make it happen. I understand that my music is there where it needs to be. I'm confident in my sound. I'm hearing great feedback. I'm building great relationships, and then the person I'm communicating with is letting me know, hey, like this is what's happening. I think that if you just stay patient and stay on course, step by step, that's what happens. Like that's like once you get that first one, it kind of is like a snowball effect over time, depending on the relationship you have. So yeah, I think that TC is a really good example of that. And I saw TC stay consistent online too, as well, of like posting the music that he has, releasing it, and making it like very sync friendly as far as like the type of promotion he's doing with his content. So yeah, I think that it's a patience game for sure. Like that's definitely the most common thread within synchronizing. This is not an instant thing at all.
Yeah, it did make me feel better when I heard people talk about it's the get rich slow thing, just because there's so many things out there, right? Whether it's live music, sync, whatever, people trying to sell you like, get rich quick kind of like just bullshit, basically, and they're just taking your money. To me, it helped build more trust the more people I met saying those kind of things. And yeah, now I see there's some people like Omega. I think he's 12 years in. I swear every day he's posting like, just got this placement, just got that placement. And I'm like, see, like you put the work in, that it can compound over time, which is very, very exciting. The other part, like TC is a great example of this concept that I'm about to bring up is TC has a very unique sound. Like the moment you hear him, you know, that is TC. It's his swagger, it's his style. And he may not be able to pull some other things off, but the thing he's pulling off does it really, really well. That was another surprising thing for me in the world of sync. I thought I was going to have to make like this, like cheesy, like, I don't know, like, I don't even, just like, I couldn't be an artist. I'd have to make this like very commercial sounding, cheesy music. And everyone I met, it was just like, oh no, we want like real artists who want real music. And that's what was cool when we were talking initially, where you're like, I like that you are a band and this is your sound. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I don't have to like pretend to do this thing. I can just do my thing and find the place. Where is that? Has it always been that way since you've been in the industry for a while? Or is that more of a new development of people looking for that originality?
I think that it feels more new and trendy. And I say that because I think that this industry was so gatekept before COVID that you would have like this 70-year-old classic rock guy just working on EDM or working on hip hop, and it was outside of their realm, but nobody else was doing it. And they were able to get those placements that it kind of just created this sound for what you heard on television or commercials. And now I think that quality, like having just a great project that's backed by great music, is so valuable that that's been a more consistent thread. And they realized now with more people submitting, I think that definitely helps, but they realize like there's people out here that are not signed to a label, that are not signed, and I'll have to pay $100,000 to clear 6 seconds of a song that can just give me the same type of quality at a much friendlier budget to what I'm working on. And I think that that's kind of what's happened over time. But also I think that just like I said, like just the awareness behind it has grown over time. That's helped kind of fill those gaps of people who specialize in the sounds that are needed for certain projects. So I think it's a mix of things, but I definitely see more quality, in my opinion, than I saw like 5-6 years ago. I've seen some things, man. I've seen people like record on their phone on GarageBand to turn in a track to get it placed, and it's like this is not good at all. Like this is before like Steve Lacy made it cool and like it was actually good. Like this was like before people had microphones on their phone. They were just singing into their phone and then saying, "Hey, can you mix this for me?" and put autotune on it. And it's like,
wow,
yes, it's the barrier of quality has definitely increased over time.
Well, I was just watching 28 Years Later. Have you seen that yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Are you into horror movies at all?
Not as much.
Or zombie movies?
Not as much.
Okay,
maybe when I was first dating, try to look cool and stuff like that. But now it's like,
like, nah. Well, you probably wouldn't like it because there's a lot of blood and a lot of zombies, but the soundtrack is fantastic. Like, and I was blown away because it was like this edgy rock kind of thing. And again, it was like inspiring for me. I'm like, dude, we got a place. Let's just keep working, figure our stuff out. And it was a band, found out, I'm blanking on the name. I'll have to look it up later, but found out the director commissioned a band to do the entire soundtrack. Like they're a legit touring band. And I think they did Train Spotting like years and years ago and have been touring and doing their thing. And then he was like, no, I want them to write the music. They wrote the entire, like all the rock tracks in that thing. And I was like, dang, that is so cool. And I feel like maybe it's just because I'm just getting educated in this world, but it seems like the more I'm listening, I'm hearing that everywhere. Even like Aliens Earth, if you've seen that one recently.
Is on FX?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, even in the background, they have like these like random rock tracks in there. I'm like, hell yeah, that's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a space for rock. It's a really big space for rock.
Yeah. I think the rock and just the originality, like seeing people like, I guess, hunger for that. My dog is barking again. Can you hear that in the mic? Are you hearing that?
Yeah, it's not that loud. That's not distracting.
It's not too distracting. Okay, cool. Yeah, I apologize to the listener if it's that bad. But what she's sidetracking me. I had another point. Oh, yes. Was the other piece, because one, thank you for being passionate about that from your company's perspective. But the other piece that it seems to be a passion is this idea of diversity in your company. And I'm curious where that comes from. And I'm curious if the sync world at large is not as diverse as maybe I think it is from your experience.
I think that just showing that anybody can really get into this as a musician, that you don't have to be a specific type of person, and that could be in any sense. I think that is important as a musician to know that you can monetize off your passion And it doesn't need to be on this, I have the number one song on the radio. I am the number one touring band in the world. Like, I think that that's where the center of that message comes from. I think that just being inclusive in a lot of different spaces and understand like, hey, like this is a community. And, if you come with respect and you come with hunger, because hunger is noticeable. You mentioned a couple of people already that you saw hunger from, like TC or Omega. You can recognize that hunger from any space really, but just having that common ground where people can come together and just like create just great music no matter what your background. I don't think that diversity is the center. I would say the center of our messaging, but I just feel like if you're a musician who's passionate about your work and you love creating, and it's not just like, I'm just going to get in here because I know I'm going to quick make some money. I'm going to get in here because I love creating music and I feel like my music can complement a project really well. I think that that's where we focus our attention on as a community, because I've seen people try to come in and out of this space and try to use and abuse it in a way where it's not really beneficial to any party, not beneficial to you as a creative, and not beneficial to the person who's trying to build that relationship long term. So I think that that's kind of where that diversity centers from, is just being able to have like a unifying space of dedicated, hungry, respectable, creative, authentic musicians.
That's awesome, man. Well, I got 3 questions left for you, and because I know you probably got a million things to knock out as well. But so someone who's trying to get in, trying to like break in, maybe they just heard about sync licensing and they're listening to this, what would you say should be their first step?
The very, very first step, it's going to be super simple, which you can take like an actual step today, spend 5 minutes, and you can literally just knock this out. And this would be the first step, was signing up with the PRO. If you're not signed up, like, you definitely want to make sure you come in, sign up with the PRO. Unless you're working with Epidemic Sound, they don't want you to have a PRO, but I don't really think that's cool. I think that you should sign up with a PRO and work with other companies that will pay you to be on their show. But if you're confident in your sound, I think that's the most important thing, like being very confident in the music that you make, and then looking for the areas of education that will teach you like, okay, this is what you need to do as far as setting up your music. How many tracks all those questions that you ask, how many tracks should I send? Do I need to have my, all my writers on that track, making sure that all my splits are correct, making sure all my, parties that are involved on my track, if there's collaborators, I signed off on a one-stop agreement. Like, making sure you're figuring out the baby steps before you actually submit, I think it's like the most important thing. And you can simply go on YouTube, search this thing up. You can go on TikTok, Instagram, search like the very beginning basic steps of sync licensing, and they'll teach you step by step. But I think signing up with the PRO and just learning a little bit about this industry. So if I was like a very, very beginner and I signed up with the PRO, I'm confident in my music, I'm going to a place like Disco. Disco is a platform for musicians in sync licensing that's pretty much almost industry standard. You don't have to absolutely use it. Like, there's other like Box and Dropbox is perfectly fine, but this is like one that I would go to just because the network I'm trying to get to is already in here. And I would learn about metadata, making sure all my metadata is correct on my music, just because it's going to increase your chances of placing, not only by having like the correct split info and your contact info and all the other stuff, but just having metadata that's searchable. So learning about making sure that my music is presentable in a sense of pitching, putting it on Disco, having my metadata straight, making sure I have agreements with any collaborators, like one-stop agreements, having like 3 to 5 of my best sounding tracks that I'm confident in, that show the spectrum of my versatility at a quality level. And then I'm taking those 3 to 5 tracks and I'm looking for different catalogs to send to. So you can search up music library directory. You can go on ChatGPT now and probably search up some music libraries. There's different resources as far as directories that you can find online that people sell. And you can go to sites like Source Audio. You can click the little labels tab and you can see all the different catalogs that are with Source Audio. It's kind of like Disco. The different libraries are on there. You can go to PMA, Production Music Association. It's like a production music library, like almost guild type of vibe. And if you go on there and look at the music library prefixes, you can see thousands of different libraries to send to.
Wow.
From there, I would take, and he said like
the PMA part.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of the PMA thus far, but
yeah,
that's cool.
There's tons of libraries that are on, it's called like the music library database or something. And it's like thousands of different music libraries that are associated with it there. But just do the research of like what they need as far as what sounds they specialize in, where to properly submit if they have a submission portal, making sure that I'm submitting to that right submission portal. Or if I don't see a submission portal, but I find the email, making sure that I'm submitting my music to the right person and asking if it's okay if they accept unsolicited submission. So that's kind of the journey of the beginning steps. There's a lot more nuance and information that goes behind that, but those are like the basic foundation steps that if you really want to take action and just get started and be like, okay, I'm just ready to get started and like put my focus into this, that's where I would kind of just like start searching those little seeds of information I just gave, just Googling different things that I may have said right now and just really focusing in on those areas.
Yeah, it is interesting how this world has all these little details. That's one thing we talk about in the community a lot is like, man, a lot of artists don't do this. They're not willing to go down that path. So it kind of helps those of us who do, in a sense, having, like you said, the metadata too. Someone was talking about that. They're like, today I was bouncing stems and doing metadata. And they're like, and it's like, everybody's like, yep, that's painful. That's a long day.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure.
Well, last two questions based off the podcast name itself, the Live and Create. Right now, how would you define living a great life?
Purposeful life, a life that you find the most purpose in, depending on what that is. It could be with family, it could be with music, it could be with creating, it could be with giving back, it could be with being a good human in general, like whatever that purpose is. I think that attaching your life to a purpose, we have a very limited time. And I think that's the way to kind of go about life in general. It's just attaching it to a purposeful life. And there's so many different layers to that. There's so many different layers to that. Like earlier, I mentioned to you that I didn't grow up knowing my father, and being a great father has always been a goal of mine. My purpose came from the trials and tribulations of growing up with that experience, and it shifted into giving that experience to my family in the future and my family now. So my purpose was attached to that, and being a great father is around that purpose. But that can just be for being a dad, and that you can attach that same type of mentality to music. If it's music, it's like my purpose. Like for me, before I went full time, I wrote so many different times. My goal is to be full time with music. I want to be full time with music. My purpose was to be full time with music. And once I got to there, it's like I have to shape now a new purpose. Like, what is my purpose now? My purpose is to help 100 musicians reach their first sync placement.
Wow.
Like I think that if I'm going defining live and create, I think that I love that mantra, and I think that just finding a purpose behind whatever it is in life, as far as being a husband, a wife, a father, a daughter, a son, whatever it is, and fulfilling that each day. And it doesn't need to be a home run hit each day. Sometimes being a purposeful father is just like spending 10 minutes and living through this chaos of the day and just giving them that 10 minutes of your attention where you're playing something super simple like cars. Like that could be so small, but that's still fulfilling your purpose. And I think that's just defining the little things that it takes to fill that cup up is what I would put behind the message of live and create, in my opinion.
That's awesome, man. I like that idea of like, it doesn't have to be the home run. I think about football where it's like those like, so the Chiefs, most of the country hates Kansas City right now because the Chiefs have won way too many things that maybe we shouldn't have on some level. But it's like sometimes they're just always chunking. Like Mahomes can do it, so he's chunking these crazy passes. But in the end, you win a football game 10 yards at a time. First down. It's those drives. And yeah, from parenting to the music world, it can become so overwhelming. Just to, like I said, if it's 10 minutes, make it great 10 minutes with your kids that day. And, or if you got an hour, make it a great day, on your DAW and make something beautiful,
Right.
I love it. Well, last question, how would you define creating great things?
I would say back to the whole kid thing, like nourishing your inner child. Creativity comes from that space. If you have the privilege of having children, or if you've been around children that at a young age, like the world is their oyster and everything is just this imaginary, playful thing. And they haven't been tarnished by the reality of this world yet. And like everything is great. And there's just like, everything is just so imaginative. And I think that if you can source back to being that inner child, and that's not always going to translate to music. That's all. Like sometimes nourishing your inner child is playing your favorite sport as a child that you used to play all the time. Like if it was baseball or something, and then maybe signing up for an adult baseball or softball league and just taking an hour out of your week being a kid, that translates to creativity. And it took me a while to realize that. I used to struggle with maybe like having writer's block or just feeling like maybe unmotivated at times. And it's like, once I get back to that space of just being a kid and being imaginative, it translates to your creativity in general. And that obviously pairs well with music. So I think that just balancing that act of like creating from a space of inner child and just letting like just yourself be. It's so hard to explain what that means, but just not putting so much pressure on making this art a specific thing. Like it needs to be greater. It needs to be this. Like how many tracks do you think that Jimi Hendrix or Timbaland or Linkin Park or whoever created that you didn't hear that they may think is trash, but the ones that you are attached to are the ones that they just happen to create that day. And it's not really necessarily like, oh, we're going to come here and just make a great track. It's like, no, they just create it time after time after time after time. And detaching the sense of like, this needs to be X, this needs to be great, this needs to be this needs to pay me $1 million, like whatever it is, like just detaching that part of it, creating from a sense of your inner child and just being like in every sense of the way.
That's a great reminder, man. I think I love like endurance sports, and almost everything about that is about technique instead of pushing hard. Like there's a sense of pushing, but like anytime you try to like really tough out a swim or tough out a long run, you end up just injuring yourself. Like you take away from your ability to do the thing. And God, it is in this world, it's tough though, because it's like, oh, we got deadlines, you got this, so we got this next one that's got to come out then, and if we don't have a track by there, we but
Very valid points. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder if there's something in that, what you mentioned, like with your kid, like if you had 10 minutes that day, if there is just something of saying like, yeah, we have all these daunting things, but today is 1 hour and I'm just going to create, and I don't have to worry about any of those things. And if I keep building those hours up, something great can come out of it. I don't know. But
100%.
Well, let people know how they can connect with you and follow you online, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's just Excalibur0, XCALIBERZERO at Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Kind of, I don't post to TikTok. Or our catalog is Supr Selectiv, SUPR SELECTIV. I don't know why we don't like E's around here, but that's how you can reach us. Just Google that. Our website will pop up. But yeah, those are the best ways to reach us, Supr Selectiv, and me. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for sharing the insights. Thanks for sharing the time, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, Miguel. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.